My family didn't come to the grand opening of my restaurant. They chose a last-minute ski trip to Gstaad, Switzerland. Instead, this night was the culmination of a decade of 18-hour days. Kind of burns up and down my arms. Of investing my entire life savings into one single, terrifying venture. It was my entire future. And they posted photos from a 5-star resort, clinking champagne glasses. Just hours before my first dinner service, I was helpless, publicly humiliated by their absence, because they had always made it clear that my career as a chef was a blue-collar hobby. It's not a real profession. Their motive was status. They needed to be seen with my sister, the successful one, at an exclusive European resort. But that public post, that arrogant, digital display of their priorities, was the mistake. It was the public evidence of their character, and it would eventually give me the weapon I needed to destroy them. I am Clara Vance, 32 years old, and a chef from Chicago. For years, I specialized in the high-stress, male-dominated world of fine dining, working for other, famous, male chefs. The irony of plating food for hundreds of families celebrating milestones, anniversaries, birthdays, promotions was never lost on me. I saw the proud parents, the beaming spouses. It was a world I observed through the kitchen pass. A small, hot window into a life I never participated in. This feeling was sharpest after my own small city hall wedding 2 years ago. It was just me and Leo. My parents called our marriage a practical arrangement for someone still finding her footing. They chose not to attend. Instead, they flew to New York. My sister, Olivia, was receiving a minor award at a finance gala, and they needed to be there for the photo opportunity. They posted dozens of pictures. My mother wore a new designer gown. My father looked proud, his arm around Olivia. When they finally called me a week later, it wasn't to congratulate me. It was only because they needed me to drive to their suburb and check on their house. The security system had sent an alert. Their words, and their absence, taught me a valuable, cold lesson about family boundaries and my own self-respect. Growing up in Kenilworth, one of the most affluent suburbs in Illinois, my childhood home looked perfect from the outside. It was a modern glass and steel house designed by a famous architect, a place featured in design magazines. It was cold, sterile, and full of sharp edges. I always felt like I was one wrong move away from breaking something. But inside those walls, a strict hierarchy ruled my entire upbringing. At the top stood my parents, Marcus and Eleanor Vance. He was a high-powered management consultant who flew first class 4 days a week. She managed a massive private equity fund. They valued one thing above all else, measurable. I-status success. Money was the scoreboard. Everything was a competition. Just below them was my older sister, Olivia, 6 years my senior. She was the golden child. Olivia was a reflection of them. She was cold, ambitious, and utterly ruthless. She could do no wrong. And then there was me, the afterthought, the disappointment, the one who liked working with her hands, who got dirt under her fingernails from the garden, who preferred the heat of a kitchen to the chill of an Ivy League library, the one who never, ever measured up. My place in the family was made clear from my earliest memories. I remember the dinner party my parents threw when Olivia, then 18, got her SAT scores back. It was a perfect 1,600. My father, Marcus, stood at the head of their massive dining table and held up her score report. To Olivia, he toasted, his voice booming. Proof that the Vance intelligence is undiluted. All their friends clapped. That same week, I, at age 12, had won a citywide culinary competition. It was a complex, 3-course meal I designed and executed myself. I had practiced for weeks. My small trophy was sitting on the kitchen counter. During the dinner, my father looked at me and said, "Clara, I hope you're paying attention to your sister. That is what excellence looks like." Later, I overheard my mother telling a friend, "Oh, it's a cute little cooking prize." She has to have some hobby. I suppose. When Olivia was accepted to Wharton for her MBA, my parents threw an elaborate party at a downtown hotel. They invited all their friends and colleagues. They toasted the future of the Vance dynasty. When I graduated with honors from the Culinary Institute of America, a place I had fought tooth and nail to get into, they skipped the ceremony. It conflicted with their annual golf club championship. My mother sent me a text message. Congratulations. Dear, your father and I won the mixed doubles. Cooking is a trade. Glada, my father would say, his voice heavy with disappointment. Usually during one of our rare, forced family dinners, he would look at my hands, which were already showing calluses and the faint, white scars of old burns. It's not a career. It's what people do when they can't handle the boardroom. You need to think about something real. Something with a future. He's right. Dear, my mother would chime in, sipping her wine. There's no legacy in food. It's so physical. Don't you want to use your mind? Olivia followed their exact path. Ivy League undergrad, 2 years at a prestigious consulting firm, Wharton, MBA. Now, at 38, she is a managing director in finance, married to another banker, with 2 perfect, immaculately dressed children. They live in a penthouse, 3 blocks from my parents' downtown apartment. They have brunch every Sunday. They are the perfect dynasty my parents always wanted. My passion for food didn't come from them. It came from my grandmother, my father's mother, who passed away when I was 12. She was warm and kind. Everything my parents were not. She saw cooking as creation, as love. She taught me to bake bread, and my parents hated the mess of flour in their pristine kitchen. After she was gone, that passion became my refuge. I still remember Mrs. Petrov, my high school home economics teacher. She saw my frustration with my family. She saw the posters for Harvard and Yale my parents had put in my bedroom, and the stack of cookbooks I kept hidden under my bed. She lent me an old, dog-eared copy of the French laundry cookbook. It was the first time I saw food as art, as science, as a discipline. The first time I successfully recreated one of those complex dishes, a butter-poached lobster. Something clicked deep inside me. I could control the heat, the flavor, the texture. I could create a moment of emotion on a single plate. I started working in local kitchens at 16. Lying about my age, I washed dishes. I peeled potatoes. I was mesmerized by the heat, the pressure, the rhythmic chaos of a professional kitchen. It was the only place I ever felt competent. The only place I felt seen. When I announced I wanted to go to culinary school, my parents staged their first and only major intervention with me. We were at their country club. We are not paying 6 figures for you to learn how to chop onions, my father declared, his voice low and furious. Right there on the terrace, people at other tables turned to look. It's embarrassing. Vance does not serve people. They are served. Marcus, my mother added, her voice smooth and logical. Perhaps she could study hospitality management at Cornell. At least that has a business component. She could manage hotels. That's respectable. They spoke about me as if I wasn't sitting right there. I don't want to manage hotels, I said, my voice shaking. I want to cook. Then you are on your own, my father said flatly. We will not fund this fantasy. You want to be a laborer. Go learn what it's like. In the end, that's what I did. I took out my own loans. I applied for every scholarship I could find. And I won several. I worked 2 jobs, waiting tables and prepping food, all through school. I paid my own way. After graduation, I entered the brutal world of fine dining. I worked Toktik hour, 90-hour weeks. I saved every dollar. I lived in a tiny apartment with 2 roommates. I didn't buy clothes. I didn't take vacations. For 10 years. I worked. I learned. I saved. When I finally had enough savings, a meticulous 50-page business plan, and a small loan from a credit union, I told them I was opening my own restaurant. I called it The Hearth. My father called it financial suicide. You are throwing away your connections and your education on a pipe dream, he said, his voice cold. Don't come crying to us when it fails in 6 months. But I didn't fail. I found the perfect small location in a neighborhood on the rise. I spent 2 years building it out, piece by piece. My partner, Leo, was my rock. He's a brilliant carpenter and designer. And he saw my vision. He respected my dream. He saw the passion, not the trade. When I finally introduced Leo to my parents 6 months into our relationship, it was a disaster. We met at their club. My father shook his hand and immediately asked him, "So, carpentry, is there a growth model for that? What's your 5-year plan? Do you have a 401k or just a toolbox?" My mother just smiled tightly and asked him if he found it difficult working with his hands all day. On the drive home, Leo was quiet. "They're disappointed in me, aren't they?" he asked. "It's not you," I explained, feeling the old, familiar shame. "It's me. They would react this way to anyone who isn't in finance or law. Anyone I chose. That's their loss," Leo said simply, taking my hand. "Because they're missing out on knowing the most determined and talented woman in Chicago." He saw me. Evaluéme. In his eyes, I was never a disappointment. He proposed a year later, on the site of the restaurant, surrounded by sawdust and construction materials. It was perfect. We decided on a small, soft opening for friends and family, followed by the grand opening for press, local investors, and the public. This was the big night. The Hearth was my entire life's work. It was small, only 40 seats, focused on sustainable, local ingredients. It was my philosophy on a plate. Leo had built beautiful tables from reclaimed walnut. The lighting was warm. The plates were handmade by a local potter. It was the home I never had. I hand-delivered the invitations for the grand opening. I drove to their house. I gave them the thick, cream-colored cardstock in their sterile, white living room, a room I was never allowed to play in. Friday, October 25th, I said, trying to keep my voice bright. Service starts at 7. I reserved table 4, the best table in the house. For you, Mom, Dad, and Olivia's family. My mother, Eleanor, picked up her phone and sighed as she looked at her digital calendar. October is so dreadfully busy. Clara, the charity galas are starting up. This is my restaurant opening. Mom, I said, my voice firmer than I intended. I've been working on this for 3 years. It's my entire future. It's my name on the lease. It's all my savings. We'll see what we can do. My father, Marcus, said. He didn't look up from a financial paper. Olivia is finalizing a major merger. It's a very stressful time for her entire team. It's 6 weeks away, I said, feeling that old, familiar tightness in my chest. Please, just be there. Send us the digital details, my mother said, turning away. It's easier to track. It was a dismissal. Weeks passed. I didn't hear from them. I sent the digital invite. The RSVP was never clicked. The soft opening was a huge success. Our friends were amazing. Leo's parents were there, beaming with pride. His mother, Maria, hugged me so hard she nearly broke a rib. We are so proud of you. Maya, she cried. His father, Sam, stayed late and helped us wash dishes when the machine backed up. It felt like a real family. The week of the grand opening. The pressure was immense. Critics from the Tribune and Chicago Magazine had RSVP'd. The reservation book was full. I called my mother one last time, 3 days before. I need a final count for your table on Friday, I said, standing in my small office, my heart pounding. If you're not coming, I have a waiting list a mile long for that table. Oh, Clara, she said. Her voice was breezy. Light. It was her social voice. I'm afraid we have a conflict. We just can't make it. A conflict, I asked, a cold feeling spreading through my stomach. Mom, this is the grand opening. I told you this 6 weeks ago. Your sister. My father interrupted, picking up the extension. His voice was impatient. Olivia needs a break. She's been working so hard on this merger. We decided to take her and the grandchildren to Gstad. You know how she loves to ski. The line was silent. I couldn't process the words. My hand was gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles were white. To Switzerland, I finally whispered. You're going to Switzerland. This week. It was the only window she had. My mother said, as if it were the most reasonable thing in the world. We fly out tomorrow. The first-class tickets were non-refundable. But my opening, my restaurant, I have all my money in this. It's a trivial event. Dear, my mother said, a restaurant opening. There will be others. This is family time. Trivial. The word hit me like a physical slap. This isn't a restaurant opening, I said, my voice shaking with a rage. I rarely let myself feel. It's my opening. I built this. Clara, let's be frank, my father said, his tone hardening to steel. Your sister is about to close a $1 billion deal. She saves companies. She impacts the market. You cook dinner for strangers. We have to prioritize our resources and our time. It's just simple math. Your sister has built something meaningful, my mother added, her voice reinforcing his. We can't be expected to rearrange our lives for this. Hobby. This is my life. I stammered, hating the weakness in my voice. You always were too sensitive. My mother sighed. This is exactly why we worried about you. Too emotional for the real world. You don't have the fortitude for business. I hung up the phone. I stood in my new kitchen, the stainless steel gleaming, the smell of fresh herbs in the air. I felt completely, utterly numb. Leo found me staring at a wall. He took one look at my face, and he didn't need to ask. He just wrapped his arms around me. I'll be your family now, he promised, his voice thick. And my parents already love you more than their actual children. The grand opening arrived. The night was a blur. The restaurant was packed. The energy was electric. Critics were there. The food was perfect. The kitchen hummed like a well-oiled machine. I was in my element. I was competent. I was in control. My sous chef was brilliant. The servers were moving gracefully. But every time I walked out of the kitchen, my eyes went to table 4. The best table in the house. It was dark, empty, a gaping hole in the middle of my celebration. Late that night, around 11 p.m., after the last guest had left and the critics had departed, giving me subtle, approving nods, I was cleaning up. My phone, which I hadn't checked all night, buzzed on the steel shelf. It was a notification. My sister, Olivia, had tagged my mother in a post. I wiped my hands on my apron and clicked it. There they were. My father, my mother, Olivia, her husband, my niece and nephew. They were on a grand hotel balcony, wrapped in expensive furs. The Matterhorn lit up behind them. They were all holding glasses of champagne, smiling broadly, their faces flushed with cold and privilege. The timestamp was from 3 hours ago, 8 p.m., right during the peak of my first dinner service. The caption read, "A much-needed family escape to Gstad celebrating Olivia's incredible merger with the people who matter most. So proud." I scrolled through the comments, my thumb numb. The perfect family. You all look so happy. Congratulations on the deal. Olivia, your parents must be so proud. They hadn't just declined. They hadn't just had a conflict. They had deliberately planned an alternative. Celebratory family event. They had deliberately posted it during my opening. It wasn't a conflict. It was a statement. A statement that I was not, and never had been, one of the people who matter most. I sat on a prep stool in my empty restaurant, still in my sweaty chef's whites. The smell of success mixing with the acidic taste of betrayal, and for the first time in years, I cried. Not quiet tears, but angry, ragged sobs. Leo found me. He saw the phone. His face hardened into a look I had never seen before. "Oh, Clara," he said softly, taking the phone from my hand and setting it screen down on the counter. "They planned it," I whispered, the words choking me. "They planned this vacation during my opening, to make a point." He held me as I cried, my face buried in his chest. "This is the last time," I said, my voice cold and muffled against his shirt. "This is the last time they get to make me feel this way." I pulled away, wiped my face, and stood up. I went back to cleaning. I had a business to run. I didn't call them. I didn't text. I blocked Olivia and my parents on every social media platform. I threw myself into my work. The Hearth was an immediate, shocking success. The Tribune review came out a week after the opening. It was a 4-star rave. The critic called my food both technically brilliant and deeply personal. Chicago Magazine followed, naming us Best New Restaurant of the Year. The reservation book filled up. 6 weeks out, 8 weeks out. We were packed every single night. I hired 2 new line cooks and a full-time pastry chef. Leo, seeing the demand, started designing a small, enclosed patio for the following summer. For 3 months, I lived in a blur of 16-hour days. I was exhausted. I was stressed. But I was, for the first time in my life, truly happy. My work had value. The world could see it. I was building something real. Something tangible. Leo and I were a team. We'd collapse into bed at 2 a.m., smelling of wood smoke and caramelized sugar, and fall asleep in seconds. We were building a life. I hadn't spoken to my parents since the phone call about G-Stod. There were no apology emails. No congratulations texts on the reviews. It was complete. Absolute silence. It was as if I had ceased to exist. Now that I was no longer a potential disappointment, but a success in a field they didn't respect, it was easier for them to pretend I wasn't there at all. Then the letter came. It was a cold Tuesday in late January. The restaurant was closed. My one day off. I was at my desk in our small apartment, finalizing payroll. The mail arrived. Tucked between a seed catalog and our electric bill was a thick, cream-colored envelope. It wasn't from a normal bank. The return address was a law firm in Delaware Blackwood Capital Trust Services. My hands felt cold. I slid it open. The language was dense, legal, and terrifying. It wasn't addressed to my father. It was addressed to me. "Dear Miss Son, Vance." It began. "This letter serves as formal notification that the Vance Family Education Trust, for which you are listed as secondary guarantor, is in default." I didn't understand. Education Trust. The primary guarantors, Marcus and Eleanor Vance, have failed to meet the required payments for 3 consecutive billing cycles: November, December, January, as per the acceleration clause in Section 14(b) of your guarantor agreement. The full and total principal balance, including accrued interest and penalties, is now due and payable within 30 days. I scanned the page, my eyes searching for the number. Total amount due by February 28th, $381. 419. Whoosher. I stopped breathing. $381,000. I didn't have that. I didn't have a fraction of that. Every penny I had, every dollar I had saved for a decade, was in the restaurant, in the inventory, in the payroll I was about to send, in the lease. Failure to remit payment by the due date, the letter continued, will result in immediate legal action, including, but not limited to, liens on all known personal and business assets, vaga garnishment, and seizure of property. My restaurant. They were threatening to seize my restaurant. Suddenly, a memory. cold and sharp. Surfaced. It was from 12 years ago. I was 20. I was home from culinary school for the summer. My father had called me into his pristine home office. Olivia was there. Looking smug. She had just been accepted to Wharton for her MBA. "Clara, we need you to sign something," my father had said, pushing a thick stack of papers across his desk. "What is it?" I asked. Intimidated. "It's a formality," he said dismissively. "For Olivia's school, it's an education trust. We're the primary funders." "Of course, but the trust company likes to have all adult family members on the paperwork. It's a tax loophole. It saves us a fortune." "So I have to pay for her school?" I asked. Confused. My mother laughed. A short, sharp sound. "Oh, dear. No, you don't have any money. This just rounds out the portfolio. It's a technicality. Your name is just on the paper." "I don't understand," I said, looking at the dense legal text. My father's patience snapped. "You don't need to understand. Clara, this is how the real world works. A world you seem determined to avoid. We are your family. We are paying for your sister's elite education. You just need to sign the paper. Or are you refusing to support your family?" That was the trigger. Are you refusing to support your family? The accusation I had heard my whole life. "No," I said quickly. "I support." "Of course." "Good," he said, handing me a heavy pen. "Sign here. Here. And initial here. We'll have the notary stamp it." I had signed. I had signed my name to a document I didn't understand. Desperate for that small crumb of approval. Desperate to be seen as supportive of the family. Now, 12 years later, that signature was a noose. My hands were shaking. 381美元. Ling ling ling. This would wipe me out. It would destroy the hearth. It would take away my home. It would ruin Leo, who was a co-owner of the business. I grabbed my phone and dialed my father's number. My vision was blurry. He picked up on the second ring. His voice cheerful. He was in a car. "Clara, what a surprise," he said, as if we hadn't spoken in months. "Is everything all right?" "I just got a letter from Blackwood Capital," I said, my voice tight and thin. They say the trust is in default. They say I owe $381. Ling ling ling. "Dad, what is this? This has to be a mistake." The cheerful tone vanished. "Damn it," he said, his voice turning to ice. "They weren't supposed to contact you. They were supposed to deal with my office." "So it's not a mistake," I whispered, sinking onto the sofa. You missed the payments. 3 of them. It's a temporary cash flow issue." "Clara," he said, his voice filled with that familiar, impatient anger. "It's not a big deal." "Not a big deal," I nearly shrieked. "They're threatening to seize my restaurant." "Dad, they're threatening to take my home. How could you just stop paying?" "We had expenses," he snapped. "The Gstad trip was... It cost more than we anticipated. We had to book the chalet at the last minute. And the market dipped in December. I had to cover some of Olivia's bonuses. It's just moving money around." He said it so casually. The Gstad trip. The trip they took instead of coming to my opening. They had defaulted on a loan that had my name on it. To pay for their luxury vacation. You used the money for a ski trip. Don't be dramatic." He spat. "It's just money. This is why you were never cut out for business. You're too emotional. Now, listen, you've received the notice. That means you need to handle it." I was silent. I couldn't form a word. "Handle it," I finally said. "Yes, handle it," he said, as if speaking to a slow child. "Your restaurant is doing well. I've seen the articles. The ones you didn't bother to send us." What? "You have business assets. Clara, you have a line of credit. Call this Blackwood Company. Tell them, you're the guarantor, and arrange the payment. You can liquidate some of your inventory or take out a business loan. It's simple. I felt the blood drain from my face. He wasn't asking. He was telling me. He was telling me to destroy my own life's work to cover the vacation he took to humiliate me. You want me? To pay the $381. Ling ling ling. Of course, he said, his arrogance stunning. It's your duty. We are your family. We've supported you. You've never supported me, I screamed, the words tearing out of my throat. You haven't given me a single dollar. I built this myself. You skipped my wedding. You skipped my opening to go to Gstaad. And now you want me to pay for it. You are being hysterical, he said, his voice dangerously quiet. This is a legal obligation. You signed the document. This is what it means to be part of a family. Clara, the less successful members support the more successful ones. Olivia is a high-level asset. You run a small diner. It's simple math. We need to protect the larger assets. Your little restaurant is a rounding error. A rounding error. In that instant, the panic vanished. The tears. The shaking. The fear, it all evaporated. It was replaced by something cold, heavy, and sharp. It was the same feeling I got when a 20-top table walked in on a Saturday night and the kitchen was already in the weeds. It was absolute. Cold clarity. He didn't see me as a daughter. He didn't even see me as a person. He saw me as a piggy bank, a financial safety net he had set up 12 years ago and forgotten about. Until now. I took a deep breath. My voice, when I spoke, was perfectly calm. I see, I said. My father was momentarily confused by the change in tone. Good. So you'll call them. I need to find my copy of the paperwork, I said, my voice flat, the one I signed 12 years ago. I need to review the terms before I speak to anyone. Why, he scoffed. It's a standard agreement. Just call them and pay it. Clara, don't make this more difficult. I will handle it, I said, using his own words. I need to review my files first. Fine, he snapped, sensing he was losing control. But do it quickly. The interest on that thing is brutal. Don't let your emotions make this worse. I hung up the phone. I sat in the silence of my apartment for a full minute. Leo was at the restaurant, receiving deliveries. I was alone. 381美元 419 Woosher. 30 days. They thought I was a rounding error. They thought I was a failed, emotional laborer who could be bullied into liquidating her life's dream. They had forgotten who I was. I wasn't just a cook. I was a chef. I had survived and thrived in one of the most brutal industries on earth. I had built a business from nothing. I had managed budgets, staff, and crises for a decade. I wasn't emotional. I was precise. I was disciplined. And I was, for the first time in my life, truly, magnificently angry. I walked to the fireproof safe I kept hidden in my closet, the one where I kept my business loan documents, the restaurant's lease, and my passport. I entered the combination, and there, in the back, in a pristine, sealed envelope, was my copy of the Vance Family Education Trust Guarantor Agreement. I had kept it for 12 years. I pulled it out, sat back down at my desk, and began to read. I read the document for 3 hours. It was not like reading a recipe, which is complex but logical. It was not like reading a business plan, which is full of projections and hope. This was like reading an obituary for my own life, written in a language designed to confuse and obscure. But I'm a chef. I am trained to see the details. I know that the difference between a masterpiece and a disaster can be 1 gram of salt, 1 degree of heat. I read every line, every heretofore, and whereas, and notwithstanding. I read it until my eyes burned and the words blurred. And then I found it. It wasn't in the main payment schedule. It was buried deep. On page 28. Section 7. Covenants of the Primary Guarantors. It was a list of promises my parents, as the primary guarantors, had made to Blackwood Capital. They promised not to take on excessive new debt. They promised to maintain a specific life insurance policy. And then, Section 7. Subclause C. Primary guarantors Marcus and Eleanor Vance shall, for the life of this trust, maintain a minimum liquid collateral of $500, $0 in a designated account at their primary financial institution, to be known as Collateral Account 774. This account serves as the first-line security for this trust. I remembered account 774. It was my father's most private account, the one he used for his most creative investments. He had bragged about it once, years ago, as his real retirement fund. I kept reading, my heart beating a slow, heavy rhythm. Section 9. Breach of covenants. Subclause A. Any use of funds from collateral account 774 for non-educational or non-investment purposes, or any withdrawal that brings the account balance below the $500. 000 minimum covenant, without the prior written consent of Blackwood Capital, shall constitute an immediate and material breach of covenant. I felt a spark, a tiny, cold spark in the pit of my stomach. They had expenses. The Gstaad trip. He had said it so arrogantly. They had a cash flow problem. I read faster. The pages felt electric in my hands. Section 14. Default and guarantor obligations. I had already read 14b, the acceleration clause that was threatening to kill me, but I had skipped the rest. I found Fiatzain Farad. In the event of a material breach of covenant by the primary guarantors, as defined in Section 9a, the secondary guarantor Clara Vance shall be herewith and immediately released from all financial and legal obligations pertaining to this trust. The full accelerated debt shall revert solely to the primary guarantors. I read it again, and a third time. I was free. If I could prove it. I had a hypothesis. They had a cash flow issue. They went on a wildly expensive TTID, last-minute vacation. They defaulted on the loan at the exact same time. And my father had specifically mentioned the Gstaad trip as an expense. It was possible, even likely, that in his arrogant haste, he had drained his sacred account 774 to pay for the chalet, the first-class tickets, the furs. But I couldn't prove it. A hypothesis wasn't evidence. Blackwood Capital wouldn't just take my word for it. They would listen to their clients. Marcus and Eleanor Vance, pillars of the financial community. They would crush me. The rounding error. I needed proof. I needed a paper trail. My first instinct was to call my father and accuse him. But I stopped. He would lie. He would see the trap and deny it. And the proof would vanish forever. I needed a lawyer. Not my parents' lawyer. The man who had probably drafted this monstrosity. Me lover. I called Sarah Jenkins. She was a young, brilliant, and aggressive attorney who had reviewed my restaurant lease. She had saved me from 3 hidden clauses that would have bankrupted me. She hated bullies. I paid for an emergency. 2-hour consultation. I was at her office an hour later. I brought the letter from Blackwood, and my copy of the trust agreement. She read the documents in silence. She was fast. Her highlighter pen moved across the pages. She stopped at 7. At 9a. And at 14 farads. She looked up at me, her face grim. "This is a beautifully constructed trap," she said. "For me?" I asked. "For them," she said. "This agreement is ironclad. In your favor. If they touched that account, you're not just free. They are completely exposed. The lender can, and will, seize everything they have to cover the note. They have no recourse." She leaned forward. "So, did they touch it?" My father admitted it on the phone. I said, "He told me he used funds to pay for the Gstaad trip." Sarah's eyes lit up. "Did you record it?" "No," I said, my heart sinking. "Of course not." "Okay," she said. tapping her pen. So right now. It's his word against yours. And he's a high net worth individual. And I'm sorry. But in their eyes, you're the debtor. We don't have enough. So what do? I asked. I have 29 days. We need him to admit it again, she said. But this time, in writing. We need the bank statements. We need a paper trail. He'll never give them to me. I said. He's arrogant. But he's not stupid. Oh, I think he is, Sarah said with a thin smile. He's arrogant to the point of stupidity. That's your weapon. He doesn't respect you. He thinks you're an emotional, incompetent cook. You're going to play that role. You're going to give him the performance of his life. She laid out the plan. It was simple. It was brutal. And it relied entirely on my father's towering, blinding ego. I went home. I waited until 5 p.m. When I knew he would be in his office, frustrated with his day, I took a deep breath. I thought about the empty table at my opening. I thought about the caption, "The people who matter most." I dialed his number. This time, I hit record on a second device. He picked up. "Clara, did you call Blackwood? Is it handled?" I broke down. I let out the sob I had been holding in for 3 months. I can't. I cried, letting my voice shake. I tried. Dad, I tried. What do you mean? You tried, he barked. It's a simple wire transfer. I went to my bank. I wailed. The one for the restaurant. I asked for a $380. 000 loan. They laughed at me. They said my business is too new. I have no collateral. I have nothing. Dad, you have to fix this. You did this. Stop blaming me, he roared. This is your legal responsibility, I told you. I have a temporary cash flow problem. Then move the money back, I screamed. I don't understand. You always told me you had that special account. The one you said was for emergencies. The 774 account. Just use that. That's what it's for. Isn't it? I held my breath. I had set the trap. His sigh was a gust of pure, unadulterated frustration. You don't listen, do you? You're just like your grandmother. All emotion. No. Logic. That's the whole problem. Clara, I can't use the 774 funds I already did. What I whispered. Playing my part. I had to use the 774 funds to cover the chalet in Gstaad, he yelled. Confessing for the second time. The hotel wouldn't take an Amex for the full deposit. It was a whole mess. And I had to cover Olivia's tax bill. It's gone. The account is depleted. Now stop whining about my accounts and go to another bank. Sell a piece of your restaurant. Mortgage your apartment. I don't care. Just do what you have to do. Handle it. He hung up. I sat in the silence. My hand on the stop button. I had the verbal admission. But Sarah was right. It wasn't enough. I needed the paper. Now, for phase 2, I opened my email. I followed Sarah's script exactly. I composed a new message. To Marcus Vance. Eleanor Vance CC. Olivia Vance subject urgent. Blackwood Capital default. I'm plan. I wrote. Dad. Mom. And Olivia. Following our phone call. I'm just terrified. I am facing financial ruin. As you said, Dad, this is my legal responsibility, and I will handle it. I went to a second bank, a private lender my lawyer recommended. They are willing to discuss an emergency loan for the full $381. Ling ling ling. But they have conditions. Because the default was caused by a cash flow issue on your end, they need to see the full picture. They require a complete accounting of the trust's collateral. Specifically, they need the bank statements from collateral account 774 for November, December, and January. My father admitted on the phone that he used funds from this account to pay for the Gstaad trip and other expenses, which triggered this default. The lender needs to see those specific withdrawals to understand the risk profile. Dad, please. I am doing what you asked. I am trying to fix this. But I cannot get the loan and pay Blackwood without these statements. Please send me the PDFs of those 3 months immediately. The bank is waiting. I hit send. My heart was in my throat. This was the real gamble. Would he see the trap? Would he realize I had just created a written record of his confession? I waited. 1 hour. 2 hours. My phone buzzed. It was an email. Not from my father. It was from Robert Hastings, my father's longtime, beleaguered personal assistant. To Clara Vance. From Robert Hastings, subject urgent Blackwood Capital default, RETPI. Clara. Per Marcus's request. Please find attached the statements for account 774 for the requested period. He has instructed me to provide you with whatever you need to resolve this matter with your lender. Please handle this immediately. He is in meetings all day. Robert. And there, at the bottom, were 3 PDF attachments. I clicked on the December statement. I scrolled down. December 10. Wire transfer. Beneficiary Gstad Palace Hotel AG. Amount $95. Ling ling ling. Ling ling. December 12. Wire transfer. Beneficiary NetJets. Europe. Amount $52. Ling ling ling. Ling ling. I looked at the closing balance. As of December 31st, the account held $312. Sabawusher. Ling ling. He had broken the $500. 000 covenant. He had used the funds for a non-investment purpose. He had lied. And in his arrogance, in his haste to make me solve his problem, he had his assistant email me the evidence. I didn't pose. I didn't celebrate. I was cold. I was a machine. I forwarded the entire email chain, my initial email, and the assistant's reply with the attachments to Sarah Jenkins. My subject line was simple: proof. She replied 2 minutes later. Got it. We are free. I am drafting the certified letter to Blackwood Capital now. Attaching all evidence. They will receive it by 9 a.m. tomorrow. Your obligation is terminated. Effective immediately. She sent a second email. P.S. Do not answer the phone when your father calls tomorrow. And he will call. Let him go to voicemail. We'll let Blackwood do the talking. I closed my laptop. I walked into my kitchen and started prepping for dinner service. I began to chop onions, my knife moving with perfect, steady precision. The next morning, I was in the kitchen by 8 a.m., receiving a delivery of fresh scallops. My phone was on silent. In my locker, the restaurant was quiet. Just the hum of the walk-in cooler and the sound of my prep cook, Ben, starting on the stalks. It was peaceful. At 9:05 a.m., my phone, inside the metal locker, began to buzz. It didn't stop. It buzzed once, twice, a third time, then a pause. Then it buzzed again, and again, and again. It was a frantic, disparity vibration. At 10:15 a.m., the restaurant's landline rang. My hostess, Maria, answered. I was butchering a duck and didn't look up. The hearth. How can I help you? A pause. I'm sorry. Who is this? A longer pause. Maria's face went pale. He's screaming. Chef, she said, holding the phone away from her ear. A man. He says he's your father. He's demanding to talk to you. He sounds awful. Tell him I'm in the middle of service, I said calmly, scoring the duck skin. Chef, it's 10 a.m. Tell him I'm in service, I repeated. Not looking up, she relayed the message. I could hear the tinny, furious shouting from across the room. She hung up, her hand shaking. He said, you're finished. She whispered. Good, I said, Let's finish this, Doc. I worked through the lunch prep. I checked my phone at 3 p.m. During the staff meal break, 27 missed calls, all from my father, 9 missed calls from my mother, 4 missed calls from my sister, Olivia, and a string of voicemails. The first was from my father. Timstamped nejen zeros exam. Clara, call me. The instant you get this. Blackwood just sent me an email. What did you do? What did you tell them? Call me. Now. The second. 9:15 a.m. What did you do? They've frozen account 774. They've frozen everything. They're calling the note you. You idiot. You were supposed to pay them. Not talk to them. You've ruined us. The third. 10:17 a.m. after he called the restaurant. You think you can hide. You think this is a joke. I am on my way to your diner. I will have you arrested. This is fraud. You sent them fraudulent documents. The fourth. 1:30 a.m. His voice was different. It wasn't angry. It was thin. Terrified. Clara. Please. Call me. We need to talk. This is a misunderstanding. They're serious. They're talking about Seicher. Your mother is. She's hysterical. Please. Clara. This isn't a game. Then. A text message from Olivia. 1:00 p.m. Dad is a mess. Mom is crying. Whatever petty revenge game you're playing because we missed your little opening. It on now. You are costing this family everything. Fix it. Call them and tell them you lied. I read the messages with a strange, cold, calm. I felt nothing. No pity. No fear. Just quiet. I finished my staff meal. I dialed Olivia's number. She picked up on the first ring. Finally, she snapped. You have no idea what you've done. Dad is going to be ruined. This is his money. Hello? Olivia, I said, my voice perfectly level. How was Gustad? Is that what this is about? She shrieked. You're punishing us for a vacation. Grow up. Clara, life is not all about you. This is the real world. This is billions of dollars of deals he's managing. It's not about the vacation. Olivia, I said, it's about the bill. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the $95. 000 wire transfer to the Gestad Palace Hotel. I said, and the $52. 000 for the NetJets. All from account 774. The account that was the only thing protecting me from a $381. 000 loan. She was silent. She hadn't known the details. I'm also talking, I continued, about the Vance Family Education Trust. What about it? She said. Her voice cautious now. Did you know? Olivia. That the entire $381, 000, was for you? What? That's ridiculous. Dad paid for my MBA. No. I said. He didn't. He financed it. Through a private trust. And 12 years ago. He made me the guarantor. He made me legally responsible for your Ivy League education. An education he used as a status symbol against me my entire life. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. That's not true, she whispered. Oh, it is, I said. But here's the best part. Do you know why he defaulted on the payments? Do you know why he had a cash flow issue? On the payments. The trip, she stammered. Partly, I said, but I saw the statements. Olivia, December 18th. Wire transfer. Beneficiary. The IRS. Amount $72. Ling ling ling. The memo line read, Olivia Vance tax bill. I let that sink in. He used the emergency collateral fund to pay your taxes. And then he defaulted. And then he told me to sell my restaurant to pay for it all. He told me my life's work was a rounding error to protect his larger assets. Like you. Oh my God. She breathed. He told me that tax bill was He said it was handled. He used. That account he did. I said, he broke the covenant. He put me on the hook. And when I sent Blackwood the proof, they didn't just release me from the debt. Olivia, they called the entire note. They've seized all his assets. Because he was reckless. Because he was arrogant. Because he would rather sacrifice my entire life than miss one ski trip or let you pay your own tax bill. He lied to me, she said, her voice cracking. He lied to all of us. He put, may God, if they're seizing his assets, our joint accounts, my husband is going to, oh may God, that sounds like a you problem. Olivia, I said, you did this, she shrieked, turning back to anger. No, I said, my voice like ice. I just stopped being the scapegoat. You've been the golden child your whole life. Well, congratulations. The golden goose is cooked. You'd better call your banker. I hung up. I went back to the kitchen. The dinner rush was brutal. In the best way. We were a symphony. Every plate went out perfect. I was in the zone. Tasting. Plating. Expediting. At 9 p.m., in the middle of the chaos, Leo touched my arm. Clara, you need to see this. I wiped my hands and followed him to the front. He pointed out the window. A black town car was double parked out front, its hazard lights flashing. My father, Marcus, was standing on the sidewalk, in front of my restaurant. He wasn't in his usual $1,000 suit. He was in a rumpled shirt. No tea. His hair was a mess. He was staring at the front door. I walked outside, wiping my hands on my apron. I stood on the top step. My arms crossed. He saw me. His face, which had always been a mask of arrogant control, was crumpled. He looked old. Clara, he said, his voice hoarse. Dad, I said, this is a private business. You're blocking the sidewalk. You ruined me, he whispered, taking a step closer. I could smell the alcohol on him. Everything. They've frozen everything. The firm, my partners. They've called an emergency meeting. I'm out. They're invoking the morals clause. The morals clause, I asked. The default, the seizure, it's unbecoming. It's embarrassing. Embarrassing. That word, that's a shame. I said, my voice flat. But I don't see how this is my problem. How? I sputtered, his anger returning. You did this. You sent them those emails. You set me up. I sent them the truth. I said, I sent them the bank statements you sent me. The ones that proved you broke a legal covenant. The ones that proved you chose a vacation over my entire financial future. It was a mistake, he yelled. A cash flow issue. You were supposed to fix it. You were the backstop. No, I said, and my voice was so cold it cut through the night air. I'm not your backstop. I'm not your rounding error. I'm not your less successful daughter you can sacrifice. He stared at me, his mouth open. You called my life's work. This restaurant. A trivial event. I said. You said I cooked dinner for strangers while Olivia impacted the market. Well, it turns out, this trivial event is the only asset in the Vance family that's still solvent. This diner is worth more than your entire portfolio. Because it's mine. And it's built on work. Not on lies. Your mother, he stammered. She's... the house. They're going to take the house. Clara, they're going to take your house. I corrected him. The one I was never allowed to play in. The one that was cold and sterile. I'm not attached to it. Please. He begged. He actually took a step and grabbed my arm. Clara, please. You have to help us. We're your family. I looked down at his hand on my chef's coat. I slowly, deliberately, removed it. Family, I said. Family doesn't post pictures from Gstaad during their daughter's grand opening. Family doesn't call a wedding a practical arrangement. Family doesn't make one child pay for the other's education and then try to bankrupt her to cover a ski trip. I pointed to the restaurant, where Leo was now standing in the doorway, watching, his face like stone. That's my family, I said. His parents, who wash dishes with me. My staff, who show up every day. They are the people who matter most. You're a monster, he whispered, his face ashen. No, I said. I'm just a chef, and you're just a man who made a bad investment. You should have read the fine print. I turned my back on him and walked back into my restaurant. I didn't look back. I went straight to the kitchen, called hands, and plated the next order. The fallout was total. Blackwood Capital seized everything. My parents' downtown apartment. Their country club memberships were revoked for non-payment. Their cars were repossessed. My father was forced out of his firm. His reputation destroyed. My mother, without my father's income, couldn't maintain her lifestyle and lost her position as well. Olivia's life also imploded. Her husband, seeing that the Vance family money was gone and that she was implicated in the tax fraud, filed for divorce, fighting for full custody in the penthouse, claiming his money was the real asset. They were all ruined, by their own arrogance, by their own paper trail. 6 months later, the Hearth was named one of the best restaurants in the country. We were expanding. The owner of our building, seeing our success, offered to sell. Leo and I, with a new business loan based on 6 months of incredible profit, bought the building. I was in my office, which was no longer tiny, signing the mortgage papers, when Leo's mother, Maria, came in. She was holding a small, framed photo. It was of me and Leo, on our City Hall wedding day. Him in a simple suit, me in a white dress, both of us laughing. I found this, she said, her eyes warm. I thought it should be on your desk. The day our family officially started, she hugged me, and I hugged her back. 2 years have passed. My business continues to thrive. My marriage is stronger every day. My restaurant is my home. I never heard from my parents or sister again. I heard, through my lawyer, that my parents moved into a small, rented condo in a distant suburb. My father, I heard, was trying to do consulting on his own, but no one would hire him. I no longer seek their approval. I no longer measure my worth through their eyes. I built a life defined by passion, not by status, by connection, not by competition. It turns out that standing up for yourself isn't just about the moment of confrontation. It's about the life you build afterward. It's about protecting your work, your love, and your own value. If my story teaches anything, it's that your worth is inherent. It's not defined by your parents, your bank account, or your job title. It's defined by your own integrity. Healthy relationships require respect. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to say no to those who will never, ever see your value. Sometimes, those trivial events that people dismiss, they aren't trivial at all. They are the moments that reveal the truth. They show you who your real family is. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family members who didn't value you or your choices? What helped you find the courage to stand up for yourself? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if my story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that they, too, deserve respect and unconditional love. Thank you for listening. And remember that sometimes, the family we create is more nurturing than the one we were born into.